You've seen the last video about how to make a pinch pot turtle. Well, now I'm going to show you how to make other pinch pot animals. Today we're going to be making an owl. It's, I think, kind of a cute one, but there's lots of different things that you can do with this that start sort of the same way. So it's a very useful video in terms of getting you started. So we're going to start just like we did with our turtle, with a little ball of clay about as big around as a golf ball or a ping pong ball. I'm going to roll it between my hands. I can roll it on the table if I want. I have some MDF down. You could put down plywood, you could put down newspaper maybe, cardboard, or just work on a table that's okay to get clay on. Just make sure you check with mom or dad first before you do this on the kitchen table. So we've got our ball of clay. You're gonna put it in your hand and you're gonna press your thumb in really hard and make a hole. This is how we make a pinch pot. So technically this is a pot. You could put like a single Cheerio in there or something to eat it, but we're gonna make it bigger. So I'm gonna turn it like if this was a clock, 1 hour, and I'm gonna press again, and then again. So like a 12th basically going around. And once I've gone all the way around, I'm gonna work my way up the side and make a little bowl. And then I'm gonna feel around, and any part that's a little thicker, I'm gonna go ahead and smush down some more, and if it's thinner, I'm just gonna leave it alone. And if I see some cracks forming, I can smooth those out. I do have a bowl of water here. You could have a bowl or a cup. It's useful, but be judicious about it. I would not start with that. Try smoothing with just your fingers, because if you start getting it wet, it can just kind of become a big muddy mess really fast. So we're gonna use that a little bit later though, and I'll show you what that's gonna be used for. So I'm gonna take the same amount of clay, make it into a ball. Roll it on the table, however you want to do it. And then I'm gonna press my thumb in really hard and then turn an hour and keep going around, work my way up the edges. And what I'm going for is I'm trying to make another pinch pot that's the same size as the other one. If you're first just getting started with this, if you haven't done it before, it might be a good idea to do 2 or 3 of these, or excuse me, 3 or 4 of them, so you have kind of an extra one. That way you can choose the 2 that are the closest, and then all the other ones can just become turtles, or stay as pinch pots, just be little bowls. So I'm gonna feel around, sort of smooth out any of the thick spots, leave the thin spots alone. Smooth over any creases that I might see. If the Ziploc bags that the clay comes in should keep it damp for several days, if not a few weeks. But if your clay does get a little too hard to work, or you just want it a little softer, you can use a spray bottle with water and spritz it in there, or just kind of take a little bit, spray it in there, wrap it up, leave it overnight. Even maybe just for a few hours would be enough to soften it up again. So now we got 2 of these, and these are pretty much the same size. So if you wanted to make like an oyster or a clam, you could kind of just have 2 of these. You can make a little ball, has a little pearl in there. It could be kind of a fun thing. Maybe put it in your fish tank or something. So we're gonna take the scratching tool, and if you've worked with me before, or if you remember the last video, score and slip is how we join the clay together. A lot of times people ask, is there like a glue for clay? And there is. The glue is the clay itself, just wet clay. And when we're doing these scratches, so imagine the smooth surface is kind of like my fists, right? They kind of hold it together, but not very well. But if we scratch it, it's like this, and then we put it together, it's nice and stuck. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I'm gonna take this scratching tool, I'm gonna make scratches all around the lip. So I've done it on both sides, and then you can take your finger, just dip that, or you can use one of the paintbrushes that came with the kit, and just add a little water, just dab it on there. We don't want to smooth out those rough edges. We want those to stay. We just want there to be a little bit of this sort of mud in between them, this slip, this wet clay. And that's gonna act as our glue to hold these 2 halves together. So I'm gonna line them up very carefully, press them together, make sure that they're meeting kind of all the way around. And then I'm gonna take a finger and just smooth back and forth over. You could use the back of a spoon if you wanted to, but I find that your 10 best pottery tools are at the ends of your arms. And I'm just gonna go all the way over, and I'm trying to smooth it out so that I can't see that seam anymore. Just going back and forth, longwise. And what I'm making here is basically a clay balloon with air trapped inside. And because there's air inside, this is going to keep the same volume. So it'll be the same sort of size, even if we change the shape. So what you can do, so you can take this, and then the clay will let you change its shape a lot as long as you go little by little. If I threw this down really hard, it would pop. But if I just tap it, I can kind of roll as I tap, and this will make it sort of longer. Now, every few taps, just check and make sure that you don't have any cracks opening up. If you do, just smooth them over, because if you do get an opening, your balloon will deflate and it can get smaller. I'm just gonna keep going around, and you can see now, hopefully you can see it's getting a little longer and more sort of oval shaped, right? So this is kind of the foundation for a lot of different animals. So if I wanted to make a frog, I could do this, but maybe flatten it down so it's kind of flatter and rounder. If I wanted to make a dog, I could kind of put it on its side and give it 4 legs and a little head on there. But today, like I said, we're making an owl. So this is going to be the body of our owl. So I'm going to tap it a little bit on the bottom just so it kind of has an easy way to stand up. Now I'm going to make the wings. So I'm going to take probably about half as much clay as I did to do one of those pinch pots. I'm going to roll it in my hand. I'm going to roll it back and forth. And I'm going to roll it on the table. I'm going to kind of stretch it out until it's about twice as long as I want each wing to be, because I'm going to make both of them. And now you can use your toothpick, which is actually a pretty useful pottery tool. Roll these a little bit more. I go ahead and cut this in half. And then I'm going to take my thumb and just kind of press. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure they're about the same size. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then to join these, I'm going to score and slip because I'm just kind of cleaning the clay off the bristles there, putting it in the water so it doesn't go anywhere. Little scratches down the side of my owl body. And now I'm going to make scratches on the underside of the wings. So the trick with scoring and slipping is that you make the scratches on both sides so that the rough spots stick together. Some people like to do what's called crosshatch scoring, so you kind of go one way and then the other. It certainly helps. It's not absolutely necessary, but it works. So I'm going to do a little water on here. Again, just dabbing it on, trying to keep that roughness, because that will help the pieces stick. It is on both pieces. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, and this one on here. Press them in place. Now I can kind of leave the shoulders just up like that, but I'm going to actually just sort of smooth them in. That'll help them stick a little bit better, and I kind of think it looks a little bit more like a real bird. But you can do your owl or other critter, whatever you want to make, however you want. Just smoothing out cracks and rough spots. So now he's got wings, but he needs a face. So one way to make, if you're doing eyes or pairs of things, I like to do kind of roll a ball and then roll a coil, just a little stubby one, and then cut it in half down the middle. And that way you've got equal amounts of clay to make into little balls. So these are the eyes. You can see because of the way I made it, they're the same size. You could just pick it off and just sort of eyeball it, and that works too, no pun intended. Now I'm gonna smush it down with my thumb, just to make it kind of round. It's gonna be big owl eyes. I got a little crack on the edge there, that's no big deal. I'm just gonna smooth that out with my finger. All right, so now I'm gonna look where their eyes are gonna go. I'm gonna make some scratches, some scoring lines. I'm gonna do them on the back of the eyes. Take a little bit of water. Put it on both sides. Go ahead and put those on there. That looks pretty good. And then I like to take the back end of the scratching tool and kind of push and twist to give him some little pupils. Now I'm going to take a little bit of clay, I'll roll it into a ball, and I'm just going to kind of pinch it as I turn it. I'm trying to make it into kind of a cone. So I'm flattening it on one side and coning it on the other, kind of like a really fat carrot, so you can see. And then this is going to be the beak. So right under the eyes, I'm going to make some scratches, Make some scoring lines on the back of the beak to have a little water on both sides. And stick it in there. So the owl that I made before, this is a horned owl. So he's got his two little horns there. You could do the same thing. They're just kind of like little beaks that you stick on there. Or you can make just another species of owl. I'll go ahead and put those on there just so you can kind of see how that works. Just make two little balls of clay. And again, keep one side flat and sort of roll and twist. And then I would score and slip and put those on there. And I think he needs it. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Last one I made, I left them off. It looked pretty good too. Not a ton of water. We don't want it to be super waterlogged. If it gets really wet, sometimes they'll kind of slide off. So we just want it just a little bit damp, and that will help them sort of hold in place. So I think he's a pretty cute looking little owl. He's an owl tail. This guy's got a little owl tail. I mean, I think he does. If you think he doesn't, that's fine by me. I'm gonna make a ball here. And then I'm gonna sort of put this down, and I'm just gonna smush it with my thumb. Got a little tail. Gonna fold one side of it up. I'm gonna make scoring lines on his back and scoring lines on the tail. Add a little bit of water. And then I'm gonna sort of smooth it up there. And then if you wanna give him, oops, slid off, that happens. We're just gonna smooth it back on. There we go. Now this little guy has little owl legs, little owl's feet. So take a little bit of clay, roll it into a ball, roll it back and forth. Set him aside here. I'll roll it on the table to make a little coil. Split that in half. And these will be the feet. And so I'm gonna make some little scoring lines kind of on the front towards the bottom. Scoring lines on the feet. And put a little water on both sides. And then join them together. Now this looks kind of like an owl with socks on, I guess. But to make it look more like bird feet, you can kind of smush them up a little bit and then smush them down. And then you can take your toothpick, and if you make two kind of indents, it'll give him 3 toes, like a bird. So now we've got our owl with his little feet. You could even have him kind of bend over if you wanted to like sit on the edge of your desk. That could be pretty cute. Lots of different things you can do. If you wanted to have sort of feather texture, you can use your toothpick. Just be careful, it's a pointy toothpick. And you can kind of press. If you can see there, sort of the tail feathers. Or you could use the scratching tool and give him kind of wing feathers. You could also do this with the toothpick on the wing feathers as well if you wanted them to match. And you could use the scratching tool on the tail. It's all up to you. So we've got our little horned owl. He looks very wise. Perhaps he will tell me how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. Now to color him, this clay on its own under clear glaze will be kind of a creamy white. So you can see the eyes on this one. They're not like bright white. That's just the raw clay. So you can just leave them like that. If you want them to be bright white, you can use the white underglaze. And then I did a little bit of black underglaze for the pupils, but you could do blue or green or brown, could be really cute. I did orange for the feet and the beak, but you could do yellow. I made the belly yellow, you could leave that white, and then I did him brown on the sides there. But it's your creation, so if you wanna have a purple owl, that's great. If you wanna do a green owl, more power to you. It's just be creative and having fun. So once you're done, once you've painted him, you wanna, as always, take your little toothpick and put your initials on the bottom somewhere. Uh-oh. He lost one of his horns. That happens. We'll just smush that back on there. It's a little too much water. There we go. Good as new. And then you're gonna take your toothpick and find some place on him. It doesn't really matter where. I usually do it right in the bottom, but you need to poke a hole all the way through the clay. It doesn't have to be very big, just a tiny little hole. And what that'll do is when it's in the kiln, when the air inside heats up, air expands when it heats, and this gives it a place to come out. If that weren't there, it could pop or crack in the kiln, and we don't want that to happen after all the work you put in on this. So go ahead and just poke that little hole. I like to do that as the last step because as long as the air is sort of trapped inside, this will keep its volume and you can sort of tweak the shape. If I were to try to tweak the shape now or pick it up or tap it or something like that, it would get a little smaller because it would squeeze the air out. So just a little, you didn't think you were getting a science lesson with this pottery, but that comes into play. If you wanted to, you could give them a little smile on the side, you know, customize them, give them some eyebrows, whatever you want to do. Hopefully that's helped, giving you some ideas. Again, this is kind of the basics for any kind of sort of chubby critter. You could be a chubby dog, you could make it really long and make it a dachshund, you could make a cow, all sorts of different things. So the sky is the limit. I'm excited to see what you guys make. Feel free to post pictures and tag me on Instagram. If you have any questions, shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook or through my email, badtrackpottery@gmail.com. I'd be happy to do what I can to help answer those. And then when you're done, this clay goes from being very soft and wet to what we call leather hard, which is when it's very strong and it's kind of hard to manipulate. And then it gets what we call bone dry. When it's bone dry, it's very fragile. So as you're transporting these, like I said, give me a message. We'll set up a time for you to drop them off. Pack it in like an old t-shirt or shredded paper or newspaper. Just kind of be very careful. And then we'll put it in the kiln. We'll fire it once to about 1,900 degrees Fahrenheit. We call it the bisque firing. And then we will dip it in clear glaze. Fire it again to about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, 2,230, I think technically. It's the temperature that we're firing to. And then it will come out and it will be shiny and ready for you to keep. So thank you so much for your support during this time. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching.